Are we live? Uh, okay, I can't tell if I'm live or not. You'd think after all of these years of doing this now, I would have an idea if I was live. There I am. I'm live. What's happening, guys? How is everybody tonight? Happy Mother's Day to everybody who's a mother. You know what I mean? Um, Wendy, I'm sure Wendy's mom. Uh, Yes, like, Ultra Kathy. She's around the house. She's been gardening all day. She's planted her tomatoes and her whatever it is that she plant stuff that grows. She's been planting. She did a beautiful job. It's beautiful out there. Um, so, hello everybody. Paul Cavzola, Dickie Farley, Kurt Zimmerman, Jerry Franks, King Eric, greatest of all. Uh, 815 LS Fox. Spots. I've never seen you before. Welcome, my brother. Wild Rose Garage. What's happening? Adam Fisher, Randy Bowers, Zero. What's happening, Zero? Terry Littlejohn, Buff Del Campo. Hey, Buff, did you drop off a bunch of stuff like paper towels and shop towels and whatnot? Two Hex Garage. What's happening, man? Um, I'm waiting to see if Buff answers that. So I came into the shop the other, I guess it was about a week ago, and there's a big pile of like shop towels and paper towels and like toilet paper, all these like all. That was you, Buff. Thank you so much. I wish I had known you were going to be around. Okay, all right. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, Buff dropped off this care package of like disposable goods, and which we desperately need. We go through a lot of shop towels, a lot of paper towels, and everything in that place. So thank you, man. I so appreciate it, Buff. Thank you. Um, let's see. Um, Ari, I said, hi. Mr. Will, what's happening, Mr. Will? Ruckwarts. Mopar Al, what's happening, Mopar Al? What are you doing, brother, man? I must have just missed you. I got back to the shop and you were gone. Um, and water, yes, water. It was just a general like stay alive and stay clean package. Thank you. Um, William Balance, thanks. Your vids helped me get Mama's Mustang right. We try, man. We try. Um, Matt asks Tony, how's Slaghammer's 383 coming along? Tomorrow morning, I've been putting it off. I've been putting it off only because I want to shoot a video, like an assembly video, and it's pretty intense. It'll be in like two parts. So I've just is when I get a chance to shoot, there's like people around. I don't want to disturb anybody when they're working, and I can't have people working in the background. So tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow morning, I'm gonna get up with the sun, go out there, and I'm going to shoot the first part of assembling that 383. We're going to do it in two parts. We're going to do the short block, and then we're going to do the long block. So hopefully I can get that done tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Um, 06 Mark, I feel like this whole community is finally getting some attention. I subscribe to like 10 different dudes building cars for the No Name Nationals. Yes. The community is off the chain. Every time I flip through, I see like, oh, I just missed this live. And there's so many lives going on. There's so many people involved in all of these lives. The community is. And once again, I got to say this again. I have nothing to do with the No Name Nationals. These are my friends who put this thing on. All I'm doing is just supporting them. So, just keep that, the Kick and Dill is in Fubar. Fubar the Axe is here. So what's new and exciting, everybody? Chris Belvac, the Satellite Sun at Badass ran like a champ. It's a really good running car. It's like, I was surprised. I honestly was. But somebody got in there ahead of time. Somebody, probably when they first put it together, somebody got in there and they did this. They did the distributor. They did the carburetors. So it's balanced really nice. The carburetors, there's a little tiny delay in the secondary opening. So like if you watch the video when Al takes off up the street, You can see it squeaks the tires a little bit. He did a good job driving it out so it didn't just spin the tires. And then you see there's a tiny bit of a bog before the secondaries open up, but that's running it without the air cleaner. We didn't have an air cleaner to put on it. So, excuse me. So when you put the air cleaner on the thing, the secondaries will open just that much quicker. So they're perfect. If I had screwed around with the springs to get rid of that little delay, then they would probably bog with the air cleaner on it. So that's why I left it the way it is. I'm very, very surprised at how well that car runs. Mike Batista, the satellite sounds a little lazy for a big block. Mike, you're the only person who has said that. You're literally the only person who's said anything. Literally, like there's hundreds of people commented on this video. The car sounds amazing. The car sounds badass. And you're saying it sounds lazy. What are you expecting, Mike? It's a stock big block with a cam and an old big block with a cam and a 6-pack setup on it. Okay. Andy. Okay. What did I miss here? Jesus. Good to see you. Okay, so this is Andy. You don't need Motorsports Garage. David Vizard and I received some bad news yesterday. Marvin Burke, David Vizard's partner, passed away from a heart attack. I'm so sorry to hear that, brother man. How old was he? How old was he, man? All right. Well, Andy will. I'm sorry, he was only 58. Geez, that's a shame. Is he leaving behind like people who depended on him or anything? Like, do we need to do a fundraiser? Because I would be more than happy to jump in there and use whatever resources we have in this channel to do a fundraiser for him. Oh God, David must be taking that tough too. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, if there's anything we can do with this channel, just my venue is your venue. Do it. See whatever we can do. But you see, hey, listen, you never know. That's why it's so important. You guys, seriously, right? 58 years old, and somebody else just died at 58. Jim Bennett, right? 57, 58, 57, 58. This guy Marvin. Okay, listen, this is terrible stuff. It's tragic when these people die before their time, right? But it should be important. Like, do you realize? Okay, especially when you get to like our age, like you're in your 50s and you're in your 60s, get it done, right? Get out there and get it done. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever, get out there because your days are freaking numbered, okay? And you don't know when it's. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, poof, you're gone, right? You reach that age, and Kevin Samuels. I don't know who Kevin Samuels is. He had a wife for 31 years. Yeah, geez, I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, seriously, guys, right? Take this as a warning. Take it as a warning. You get to this age, and it's like you could just like that, right? So if there's anything hanging over your head that any dreams you got, anything you want to do, whatever it happens to be, you want to ride the iron butt on your motorcycle, or you want to go jet skiing, whatever it is that you want to do, right? Do it now. Don't put it off, right? And you got a project that's just sitting there collecting dust, don't die with your project just collecting dust. Either shit or get off the pot and get rid of it, or get out there and work on a damn thing. But that's, I'm telling you, man, that's a shame. That's a shame. Rolling Thunder 420, are your comments visible? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Let's see. AT, enjoy every day and live life to the max. Absolutely. Joe Brennan, that's what I tell my wife when I want to buy more non-running trucks. The Thumper, the projects that would keep me alive. There's a lot to that. Yeah, seriously, what you're saying there, Thumper, there's a lot to that. Okay, because let me tell you something, right? Your body doesn't know. See, when you're motivated to do something, okay, it doesn't make any difference whether it's like finishing a project or fighting a war or whatever it happens to be. Okay, it doesn't make any difference what it is. When you're set on a mission, when you've got a mission, your body knows that it has to do something important, and it will do whatever it can. Like it's just like let's say you break an arm or you break a leg, okay? And some people will lay around and it's just like oh, okay, I got to do nothing for 3 months, right? Yeah, you know what? First off, it never heals right, and it takes twice as long to heal. If you get out there and you start pushing it as soon as possible, you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Not only does it heal good, it heals fast, but it heals good because your body it doesn't know what mission you're on. It just knows you're on a mission, so it has to fix and replenish and do whatever it has to do to get you to the next phase. You see what I'm saying? So to have that mission, the thing that you're determined to do, man, it's super important. That's how you stay young and healthy. I'm 60. I run circles around people who are 20 years old. Al is 55, I think 54, 55. He's almost my age. The guy's a beast. He's an animal. He's just at it all the time because he's motivated. You know what I'm saying? Got to stay at it. Got to get at it. Is that Uncle Kathy? There she is, sneaking in.
Coffee.
Oh, thank you. Look at this. She brings me coffee. Look at this beautiful.
Here you go.
Thank you. Right? Does it get any better than that? No, it doesn't. David Leonard, my oncologist told me if I wanted to buy a new motorcycle, I better do it soon. I'm now rocking a 2022 Yamaha MT-07. Funnest bike you've ever ridden. David, I swear to God, right? Okay, see, look, this is how great minds think alike, right? I was just looking at R7s. I think I want to buy an R7. The MT-07 is great, okay? But I think I want the R7. But how do you like that, right? Great minds think alike, brother, man. And I swear, like, I'm telling you, like less than 48 hours ago, I was binge watching R7 videos, and Al came in and it was like, I saw him in the morning, right? And I says, I got to get an R7. I think I need an R7. So how do you like that? Let's see. Chris Belvick, I'm 20 and now is the time to have fun and do shit. Never know what'll happen. Bro, I mean, seriously, man, just hit it, right? You know what I mean? I wish I could say I wanted to be young again. I wish I could go be 20 again, but I'm happy. I'm content. Like, I don't have to go back, right? But, Chris, right? You're 20 years old. Do it, right? Run on primal urge. You know what I mean? Whatever you got to do, right? Just run. Close your eyes, put your head down, and run. Right? The world will stop and respect somebody who just goes for it. Okay? You know what I mean? Go for it, brother, man. Let's see. Greg McDonald's quit buying bikes and get Ultra Kathy or GTX. She doesn't want one anymore. After the experience with Andy's car, you know what I mean? we looked at each other when that car was done, right? And Andy was like driving away. We looked at each other and we're like, I don't want one of those anymore. Do you? She's like, nope. Charlotte Quillen, Tony, Kevin Samuels counseled women on how to get a husband. He was a MGTOW #1. He had 1.5 million subscribers. Okay, I've never heard of him. But yeah, there's a lot of people dropping dead in that elite 50 range now. The Kickendall, Tony, any advice on non-resistor round ignition coils? I've had really good luck with the Axel Superstock coils. It's a non-resistor coil. It's just a regular round coil. It's like a 30,000 volt, 32,000 volt coil, whatever it is. It's fine, man. They work great for all types of street use. And then they're made in China, like every freaking thing else. But I've had good luck with them. I just put one on this on that satellite. That's in my opinion, is probably the best of the non-resistor coils. The blaster coils seem to go dead after like a year. They're DOA. And they're cheap. They're cheap. So I would grab one of those, man. Ari, what are you saying, brother man? I don't mean to sound overly morbid, but I'm 30 and consider myself middle-aged. I'm kind of tall though. Don't tell people tall people age faster. Is that just dogs? No, yeah, dogs. They end up with like hip dysplasia, right? No, man, you're fine. I'll tell you, at 30, listen to me, at 30, I thought I was old. I thought it was done, right? I said, there's just no way I'm going to make 40, right? And when I hit 40, I was like, 45? Yeah, right. I'm lucky to see 45. So I'm sitting here now at 60. And it's like, any minute now, right? Any minute now. And I'm good with it. You know what I mean? I'm good with it. Green Auto Technology, thank you for the super chat. Share your results from our technologies, please. I did that one video where we tested the one thing on the GTX on the GT. I've got that carburetor that you sent sitting there, bro. I mean, I don't know what you want me to do with this thing. I don't know what you want me to do with it. Thumper, I drove the Cuda today. Had a chick say, nice midlife crisis car. I should have replied midlife crisis for people who haven't done anything in life. That's not me. See, Chris, you're welcome, Chris. Joe Brennan, how can excessive fuel pressure affect your tune? You're talking about an injected car or a carbureted car? Because with a carbureted car, the worst it could do is push past the needle and seat and flood, right? For an injected car, excessive fuel pressure is going to make you run fat, so you're going to have to tune the injector back. At 30, I was Superman. I had the world by the balls when I was 30. Let's see. Christopher Gwynn, what are your thoughts on me changing my 77 Ford F-150 300 inline over to HEI distributor? If it was mine, I wouldn't do it. There's just no way, right? I would work with the Ford Duraspark. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things, a lot of ways you can go about that. But myself, no, I would absolutely not. There's no money. There's enough money in the world to make me put a Chinese HEI in anything, much less that. But it's your car. Do what you want to do with it. Redford Toffelin, hey, I can't find 10 over rings. Should I file 20 over rings to fit? No. 20 over rings. 20 over rings are going to have a different radius to them. They're not going to seal right. Um, okay. Hey me, head 68. What's going on, brother man? Um, let's see. David Leonard, at 30, I rode on a team that set the vintage 24-hour off-road endurance world record on a 67 Triumph. When I was 30, oh God, I had just stopped doing the magazines again, and that's when I decided to go like dive hardcore into the nitro thing. When I was 30, I built a car for the Petosa brothers, and it was that same car. Mark Oswald ended up driving that car, and they had the NHRA mile an hour record at 291, I think it was, in 1990. The next, was it that year or the next year? 91, I believe it was. But I that's what I did when I was 30. I built that car. Not only did I build the car, I built the shop that the car was in. Um, Green Auto Technology, we want you to keep your word. Anybody. I don't know what you mean by anybody. You want me to keep my word. Listen to me. I read the literature. I see what you did. I see the groove that's in there. I read the literature about this ball of supercharged air that's going to, and bro, listen to me, right? Listen to me. It's nonsense. Okay? It's freaking nonsense. I mean, do you really want me to do this? Because if you really want me to do it, I'll do it, but you're going to look stupid. I'm telling you right now. Charlotte Quillen just lost a 35-year-long friend. He was 57. See, it's like a magic number now. It's like everybody's dropping dead right there, like 56, 57, 58. Rooster American 832 transmission, good for a street strip 440/72 Charger. There's no better. If you're going to go with a manual transmission, there is no tougher. There's no better. There's really, period. The end. There's nothing better than an 833 for that. Roadkill costumes. At 30, I was concerned. Then I started the Keith Richards diet. 56, and fit as a fiddle. There's a lot to be said for that, man. There's a lot to be said for that. Anybody, Green Auto Technology, anybody can ship us anything you want and we'll test it. That's what you said. I shipped it. Where are the results? Bro, I'll put that, I'm telling you, I'll put that carburetor on it within the next week or two. How's that sound? All right, I'll do it. You said you want me to, I'm going to do it. I will put it on the GT and we'll do a back-to-back that against the carburetor that's currently on it. Mitten Made Muscle, no offense, but that carb won't do a thing. It would have been done already. Yeah, I know, duh, right? I was born and raised blocks away from the Holly Plant in Warren. Every day they were testing carbs on a test track. Yeah, I know, obviously. Terry Littlejohn, you're 61 and holding on tight. What do you want me? You got your supercharged slant 6, right? That's enough to keep you young. Big block Ford top loader versus 833. I mean, listen, I got plenty of respect for the top loader. That's not as strong as an 833. It's not as strong as an 833. Now, I'm not saying that top loader is bad. I like top loader transmissions. They shift really nice. They shift better than the 833, right? They're quieter than an 833. There's no question about it, right? The top loader is a fine transmission, but there's nothing stronger than an 833. AT, thank you for the super chat. Guys, get yourself checked for prostate cancer. I had it at 44, now in remission, onwards and upwards. It's a simple blood test. Man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that idea. I stay away from doctors. If there is something wrong with me, I don't want to know. I'm going to let nature, you see, but it is good advice. It's good advice, right? So I'm not saying, I have my own way of thinking of things, right? And I don't expect everybody to go along with my way of thinking. It's a little unorthodox, okay? But I agree with that. Bill McKeiska, thank you for the super chat. How did you store a partial quart of oil in the days of metal oil cans? You just leave it. You just leave it. It's fine. So I was a kid, right? So when I was a kid, I used to go to the races, and I used to watch them, service the cars. Okay, you go to the funny car race, Englishtown, Atco, wherever it was, right? And you watch. I was a teenager, like 16, 17, 18, and you go and you watch them, right? And they're servicing the cars, okay? And you got to put 10 quarts in one of these things, thick oil, right? You got to put 10 quarts in, and you got to do it fast, right? So back then they were using the cans, the regular oil cans, and the method that they would use is they would take a screwdriver, stab the top of the can with a screwdriver, and then flick it back, and it would open up the top of the can into like a funnel type of shape, and they dump it in like that. Everybody else they'd use those spouts that you pop in through the top, where they'd knock 2 holes in it, and then pour it that way. No, these guys had the method. Okay, they had the method. Pow, whack, right, and then slam it in. So I perfected that. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I'm going to open my oil cans like the big guys do. So I had it down to a science. And then just as I started screwing around with when I started, working with the fuel cars, they went to the plastic cans, the plastic bottles. I never got a chance to actually do my thing. When you're a young kid, it's stuff like that means something, Yeah, those were foil-lined wound paper cans. Yeah, and they had a tin top and a tin bottom. Lindstrom, about ignition timing, how do you determine total timing? You mean what is the optimum timing, with optimum total timing, or how do you determine what it is? Because if you're measuring your total, if you're shooting for total timing, all you do is you bring up the RPM until the distributor stops advancing, and that's what your total timing is. And how do you determine what's the optimum total timing? You can't. Like, there's no formula to that to say, oh, well, this engine runs best at this, and this engine runs best at that. Total timing is going to range, optimum total timing is going to range between 27, 28 degrees and like 38 degrees. It's going to be someplace in that range depending on all of the different combinations. And like the ballpark kind of default total timing is like 34 degrees, right? So if you want to go that route, right, just and say, okay, I'm going to just start someplace. 34 is probably about the average best total timing. You may need more, you may need less. There's only one way to find out. I can tell you that with small, once you get under a 4-inch bore, right? Once you get into a 4-inch bore, it starts to become really critical. Small bore engines don't like a lot of timing. They'll fight. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're in that 4 to 4.5 inch range, okay? And it's like timing is pretty flexible, right? But once you get under the 4-inch bore and the smaller you get, right, the more critical it becomes. D. Scaglione, what's happening? Olive, how are you? Let's see. Torque Master Garage, still giving out shout outs for the No Name Nationals. I certainly am. And anybody who wants to promote their channel for the No Name Nationals, please feel free in this chat now to tell people what it is that you do on your channel. Give them an idea so that they know if they're interested in it, they'll go give you a click. Fubar always graciously puts up the links to these channels. So, just tell people what it is that you do and why they should go over there and check you out. And yeah, by all means, anybody who's looking to promote anything for the No Name Nationals, please feel free to use this forum to do it. Let's see, Charlotte. 4-inch bore, the spark can only travel at 186,000 miles per second. It has nothing to do with the distance of the spark. It has to do with the flame front. And the speed of the flame front has to do with every kind of factor you can imagine. Okay, every kind of factor you can imagine. So there is no set speed for the flame front to work its way across a piston, or I should say across a combustion chamber. So yeah, it doesn't matter when the actual duration of spark has nothing to do with the real estate that the flame has to cover before it creates enough pressure to push the piston down. 815 LS swaps. I helped build an LS Volvo group project that will be going to the No Name Nationals. Very interesting. Should have gone myself. We do a lot of LS swaps and event coverage, I guess you mean. Well, there you go. Hey, I dig the LS thing. Okay, I'm not part of it. I'm not part of the club. I don't have it, but I love watching what you guys do with those things. Up until this last year, I would go to LS Fest at Bowling Green every year. I didn't want to miss it. It was one of my favorite events, just because of how creative the freaking LS guys are. So, while you'll not see me doing any LS projects, I fully support you guys who do. So, interesting stuff. Let's see. Richard Strach Messerschmitt Inc. 1970 Olds 442, 455, best car ever. Everyone else go home. I like that, man. And it was Elephant Engine Ernie at his best. You guys, okay, who's old enough to remember that, right? Doc Olds and Elephant Engine Ernie. Zenreal, Hagel Tony. Well, what would cause a stock 383 with dual quads to not have any oil pressure? I don't know, but it has nothing to do with it not having dual quads. Oh. Hammy-head, thank you for the super chat. Has anyone ever tried using an electric blower in place of a turbo? Presumably they have it. It seems like it would work. Yes, but why doesn't it? People messed around with electric superchargers for a while. There were a couple of gimmicky ones that obviously didn't work. I can't tell you why they haven't been able to make it work. I don't understand it. I would think that using like a capacitor to really get this thing rocking, and that it shouldn't be an issue. Excuse me. but I'm not an electrical guy. I don't know. Now, supposedly somebody's got one functioning now. And if I read about this maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, but none of the details really retain themselves in my head. I would, if there was an electric supercharger on the market, I would love to get involved, or try something like that. I'm sure somebody here knows more about it than I do. Jonathan Couchy, thank you for the super chat. My friend picked up a 1970 Cutlass Holiday Fastback Coupe for $400. It has mid-70s 455 out of an Olds 98 Turbo Hydro 400 transmission and a GM 12 bolt, and it has a title, any tuning tips. Wow, no fooling. That's a screaming deal. A 70 Cutlass with a 455, a Turbo 400, and a 12 bolt for $400. What a screaming deal. No, I don't have any tuning tips. Get it running and let me know what it does first, and then maybe I can make suggestions. I don't have anything off the top of my head. But boy, yeah, that's great. See, the deals are out there, guys. The deals are out there. Zero is saying companies like Garrett are involved. I think it's cool. No heat soak, no pun. Yeah, no, what's a simpler setup? No belts to run, no exhaust to deal with, a turbocharger or anything. Just like hit a switch or a button and this thing goes. See, that's my style. I like that, man. That's as simple as you could possibly get. Yeah. I know about that. I actually watched a video on that. One of his videos last week, I think it was the last time it came up in chat. Yeah, Tall Garage. He's doing this really cool. It's a Ford Straight Six, and he sectioned a couple of LS heads for this thing. So very interesting project. Very interesting project. It's very reminiscent of like comp eliminator stuff from the 60s and the 70s, or modified eliminator. Where they would graft all kinds of different things together, weird combinations. So that's very reminiscent of like the glory days of drag racing. Very cool stuff. Very ambitious too. Let's see. Oh, I have to make a video. The frame is solid, but the body is like deadly scary. Luckily, we have lots of metal to weld it with. Well, okay, I guess you can't have everything, right? Vince W. Hey, Tony, in the crack cocaine era where there were a lot of tweakers selling their cars for cheap. I don't know. I was never in like a crack area where I had to, where I came across those opportunities. I mean, I'm sure probably. Nicholas R. It won't hurt an engine to run it with no transmission attached. No, it won't. It'll be fine. It's the same. Running an engine without a transmission attached to it is the same as running it in park or neutral. It's fine. Wild Rose, you're saying you buy Olds 455s all day for $200 to $300, but where do you find them? Andy, you know what? You and I are both gonna be flogging right to the last one. The day before, I see it now. I see it now. We're both gonna be flogging on these freaking cars the day before we go. Well, Pardon, thank you so much. For the super chat, UT, you mentioned the 72 Roadrunner just recently, and I ran into a pair yesterday and today at the Rhinebeck, New York show and swap meet. I took videos and put them on my channel. Cool cars. They're beautiful. You know, those are the rarest of all of the RM Roadrunners. They only built 7,100, maybe 7,200 of them. And that includes the GTXs, which the 72 Roadrunner GTX, as far as I'm concerned, like that's the brass ring of like, right, just emblems everywhere, Roadrunner and GTX all over the place. But yeah, they're beautiful cars. So if you ask me, it's the best looking out of a bunch of them. Mike Batista, 72 Roadrunners, I mean front bumper. It has the same bumper as the 71, but the grill is different. The 71 Roadrunner it's like a satellite grill with just a Roadrunner head in it. But the 72 Roadrunner grill, oh, it's beautiful. You know, it's inset. You know what I mean? You got to see one to really appreciate it. Look up 72 Roadrunner grill. The downside of them is the grill is like no exaggeration, man. It's like the most complicated grill Chrysler ever put in any car. When you start taking it apart, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like doing an early '60s Cadillac. You know, where all of the bullets were individual. The 72 Roadrunners are the same way, man. God forbid you have a front end accident and you kill the grill on that thing. Let's see. Hippie Miller, you're doing a 70 Roadrunner at the shop right now. Beautiful cars. Dylan Torres, people need to start appreciating the 73, 74 Chargers. It's an underrated car. The thing with the 73, 74 Chargers, right, is that they soften the lines so much. The 71, 72, okay, is just beautiful, okay? Just absolutely beautiful. If you ask me, the 71, 72 Charger out of all of them is it's the sexiest one of all of them, right? But 73, they soften the lines, right? Like the top body line, instead of it doing that Charger thing where they kind of cross or that crease that's there, they did away with that. And that was just like this, right? And they made the wheel openings a little bit bigger too. So and then the bumpers got stuck way out. So the 73, 74 Charger, it's hard to look at from certain angles, man. The 73, 74 Roadrunner is a much cleaner update than the 72, 73 Charger. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had a bunch of 72, 73 Chargers. I personally have nothing against them, but the 73, 74 Charger is a car that, like, when you walk away from it, when you park your car, you put your car in a parking lot. Okay, you're gonna go to the store or whatever, and you turn around, you look at your car, right? Or you're walking up to your car, you're walking out of the store, and you're walking up to your car. The 73, 74 Charger, you got to kind of squint a little bit. You know what I mean? You got to kind of like, you got to do like this before it looks right. Where you take the 71, 72, and it's like, oh, you're just beautiful. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but I have nothing but love for all of Mom Mopar's creations from that era. So, DJ Fruman, how many detents should you feel when installing a torque converter in a 727? 3. You get the first one, right? Get the first one, then you lift up the hub a little bit, and you give a gentle spin, and you go on the second one, and then you got to wiggle because that last one is the two teeth for the pump have to fit into the two holes in the snout of the converter, and that could be a little bit of an issue. So you got to mess around with that a little bit. Tony Whittington, thank you for the super chat. Tony, have you ever seen a V8 run backwards? I saw it once, but I never figured out how it happened. Well, many times, a lot of marine engines were set for reverse rotation. I've seen V8 engines diesel backwards, but only for a second or two. They won't actually run backwards. You'll shut them off and they go, and then it'll catch one cylinder and flip the thing over backwards, and it'll diesel in reverse rotation for a couple of seconds. But there's no principle. You know, how can I explain it to you? There's no coordination in the valve train to sustain it running backwards for any amount of time. It requires a hot spot in the combustion chambers to keep it going like that. But reverse rotation motors are common, and it's the only difference between a straight rotation and a reverse rotation is the camshaft. The camshaft and the knurling on for the rear main seal, right? The direction of the knurling on it, because guys will put a marine crank and a regular engine and wonder why the rear main seal leaks, because the knurling is in the opposite direction, so it guides the oil to the seal instead of away from the seal. But yeah, that's let's see. Vince W. Anything after 72 need to put a brown paper bag over her head first. That's not true. That's not true. There is some. Look, okay. The Chevy Lagunas, okay, the S3s, right? Beautiful cars, right? Those are 73s. 73, 74 Roadrunner grew on me. I didn't like them at first, but they grew on me. I have one. I got a 73. There's a few cars after 72 that were okay. Eric Wilson, on the old two-stroke Easy Go golf carts, the engine ran backwards for reverse. It was two-stroke. Did I see Daddy's Money Garage new video? I have not seen it yet. No. William Jameson, the 73 Super Duty Trans Am, one of the sexiest cars ever. Okay, I am not a fan of Trans Ams. I wasn't then, and I'm not now, and I never will be. But you're right about that. The 73, the Super Duty, yes. Every year that car went, it lost something. But up to 73, you got a point there. They were beautiful cars. Let's see. Yeah, Oliver's saying those Daddy's Money kids putting out funny content. They're good kids. They're funny kids. They're good to have around. They're at the shop now, actually. Paul, West Virginia, Paul WV. What do you think of the old Cleveland Fords? Underrated? They're great motors. I don't think they're underrated. I mean, they've been recognized as like inch for inch, pound for pound, one of the most potent small block packages ever. Right? Just think of the Cleveland. Seriously, think of the Cleveland as a miniature big block Chevy. Right? I mean, essentially, that's what it is. They're fantastic motors. They're not underrated at all. Let's see. Megan Schmall, what's going on with the Invade Uncle Tony's Garage open house event? I've become a recluse. I've become a recluse. I've gotten to the point I love spending time with the viewers on these lives. We do two of them. We do one Wednesday night. We do one Sunday night. I love it, but when I'm at my shop, I just want to be at my shop, and I don't want to be a YouTube guy. I just want to be at my shop, and then I've just gotten to that point. I'm just not into it. You know what I'm saying? So we're not going to be doing an open house. Um, let's see. Smokey Unic ran his V8 backwards, even as driving. No, it wasn't a V8. It was a Hudson straight six. He ran the Hudsons backwards. Let's see. Don, I feel Fords are nice and simple. Fords simple? Really? I've never in my life heard Fords and simple in the same sentence. But if that's how you feel about them, more power to you. Joe K, I like most of the Colonnade 73 through 77. Well, okay, Carson, I didn't mean to click on that, but thoughts on 180-degree bundle of snake items. They work, but they're impractical. They're not worth the little bit that you'll get out of. They're just not worth it. That's why it's not done. Like that was a popular thing people played with in the 1960s, Ford especially, right? But it went by the wayside. Yeah, Andy is saying Fords aren't simple, and I'm a Ford guy. Olive saying, ask me about the basket case Taurus. Slowly I turn, step by step, inch by inch. What was that from? What was that from? Joe Brennan, that's a good question to ponder. Why do certain brands of automobile make more sense to work on with different people? That is a legitimate thing. That's a legitimate question that I don't have an answer to. I could tell you that going back to when I was a teenager and started as just like a regular mechanic, okay? I always found working on Chrysler products to be easier. Like it was more natural for me, even though it had nothing to do with. Okay, so you're a mechanic now, okay? So I'm a mechanic. It's the late '70s, okay, and I'm working on everything under the sun. I'm a Mopar guy. I love Mopars, right? But there isn't a shit of difference between a Chrysler New Yorker and an Oldsmobile Delta and an LTD. Okay, they're all exactly the same car as far as like, you got to service this thing as a mechanic. And I always felt more comfortable working with Chrysler products. Like the design language resonated with me. Like, that makes sense. I like the way this is done, right? And other people have the exact opposite experience. They hated working on Chrysler products, and they loved working on whatever it happened to be. I'll tell you what now going back to the day. It was going back to like when it was just regular cars in regular service, and you bring them into a shop and have to work on them. Oldsmobiles were always Fords were always difficult to work with, and Oldsmobiles were always very, very difficult to work with. Oldsmobiles there was always a gotcha when you were working on an Oldsmobile. The exhaust manifold bolts would rot over. They had these tangs that you'd fold over, and it would cause the bolts to just rot away to nothing. The belt setups on the front of those engines, doing a water pump on either a Ford or an Oldsmobile back in the day was a freaking nightmare because of all of the crazy bracketry and stuff that they put all over the place. Need Metal, thank you for the super chat. Pretty soon a Ford Mustang will be electric and come with a mask dispenser and an anti-fun membership. Jonathan Couchy, thank you for the super chat again. Backstory in the Cutlass. Guy parked it in his friend's field with a bunch of performance parts and a 400 small block Chevy in the cabin. When he came back 15 years later, the cabin was cleaned out and headers off engine. Small block Ford water pump bolt snap on a block. Let me tell you something. I had, so now I'll tell you the year. It was 1983. No, wait, 1982. No, 1983. Is it 1982 or 1983? And I had a shop on Staten Island on Richmond Terrace on Staten Island. I was young. I was like 21, 22 years old, right? And I had a guy, okay, there's no exaggeration now, right? I had a guy who was my Ford timing chain / water pump guy, because there were Fords everywhere, right? It was like just Fords everywhere, okay? And just the normal service, like normal, shop service. People come in, they need a water pump. Timing chains were a common service item then, right? Like literally twice a week, 3 times a week, you'd be tearing the front off of a Ford for one of those reasons, okay? And I had a guy that all he did, I hired him, that all he did was the front of Ford engines. That was it. That was his entire job. Mike, thank you for the super chat. Circle Track V8s with 180-degree headers with gear drive were a staple in the mid-'80s. They sound like a bunch of angry bees under the hood. Well, they were using flat plane cranks, right, with the 180-degree header, which the flat plane crank changes everything. The header doesn't really change the sound that much. The header, with the header, you're not changing the firing order, right? You'll get a real change in engine sound when you start messing with the firing orders. But the headers themselves, you'll get a slightly different sound, but not crazy. With a flat plane crank and a 180-degree header, yeah, that'll sound exactly like that. Because what you're doing at that point is you're running 2 4-cylinder motors. So picture 2 sport bikes, going simultaneously with that high RPM thing. You can't really compare it to like a racer, which is a lower RPM deal. But yeah, it would sound like 2 sport bikes in one package. Cobra Jet. I'm so disappointed in the Mustang going electric. It's like electric Brandon. Listen, don't hold your breath on this whole electric car takeover thing. It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. Eric Wilson. I once got a 75 460 Lincoln Continental given to me because the guy who tried to put a water pump in it and couldn't figure out what all the brackets were in front. Exactly. The Earl Scheib paint jobs. The Earl Scheib paint jobs weren't bad as long as you did the prep work. The thing about the Earl Scheib paint jobs was that you pulled that car in there, okay? And this is why they were so cheap, because there was zero prep work. Whatever you pulled in there, they'd walk around the car with a gun. And whatever was uncovered got paint on it. I think they would cover the windows. They covered the glass on the windows, but they didn't cover any of the trim. They covered nothing. So whoever was painted was just shh, right? And that's it. There was your quickie paint job. So the key to getting a good Earl Scheib paint job was to do all of the prep work yourself. They take the headlights out, take all of the easy off trim off. You know what I mean? And then tape off everything that isn't easy to tape off, and then send it to Earl Scheib, and you got yourself actually a pretty nice paint job. Yes, they painted over mud and bird shit. Exactly. Whatever you pulled in there, that's what they sprayed. Okay. Let's see. Jackie, how about the North Star with the starter under the intake? I remember the first time I saw that, man. I had a caddy come in, still doing regular work. I had a caddy come in and, no start, right? So I was like, click, 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 right? Well, starter. And looking around under the car, where's the starter? I probably spent a good 20 minutes like crawling around all under this freaking car to find out where the starter was. And it was before like the internet became the thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, okay, just Google it. It wasn't quite that. It wasn't to that point yet. And yeah, when they found out that it was under the intake manifold, I was like, I am getting out of this business. I am getting out of this business as fast as I can. But I'll tell you what, it's gone a lot further than that now. Let's see. Global GTX, what's happening, brother man? Hank Hill, why do we never see people building 318 polys? Because the motor really doesn't have that much of a value. Like there's so many easier, simpler, cheaper, more common engines to build. You know what I mean? Just no. Yeah, you got to chase down the battery cable. Jeremy Crocker, thank you for the super chat. I still have the PTSD from trying to save an 82 Cadillac HT 4100. I know. I am so great. I tell you, well, I wasn't. Okay, I've had overlapping careers. I'm a workaholic. I'm a freaking workaholic. So I've had overlapping careers where I would be doing magazines and running a shop, and race cars and running a shop, and coffee houses and running a shop, and parts business and running a shop. I've been in and out of everything. I work 7 days and nights a week. I haven't had a quote day off since like the 80s, if that, right? So and I have overlapping careers. Okay, so I remember when, and I'm very nostalgic for the repair business, when we were working on good cars. You know what I'm saying? We were working on real cars. Like, it's like you knew whatever you were going to do to this car was going to be a success, right? Because the car wasn't going to battle you back. There were some tough jobs, you know what I'm saying? But the bottom line is that, like, if you were a mechanic in the late 70s and the early to mid 80s, turning wrenches, you woke up in the morning and you said, I'm going to accomplish good things today. Everything that comes my way is I'm going to master it and send it out the door. And you did. You know what I'm saying? But then the machinery started getting more and more nonsensical and more disposable and more just like deliberately engineering things. Like I remember like there were a few clues that told me it's time to get out of this freaking business, right? Because things don't make any sense anymore. And one of them was, and I don't remember, one of you guys will know it, I'm sure, right? One of them was a fuel pump module, right? The tank mounted pumps without any access door was one of them. It's like, this is ridiculous. You get this car with a full tank of gas, you got to drop the friggin' tank to get to, right? Just why? Simple access holes. Some of the manufacturers, the foreign manufacturers did it, but American cars didn't. It's like, you got to go through hell. You got to suck hell to change this module, this fuel. Well, first you changed just the fuel pump, then you had to change the whole fuel pump module. But I really knew when it was time to get out, when there was a GM product, I don't remember which one it was, I guess it's one of you guys will remember, where in order to take the fuel lines off, you had to break the plastic, the clips that held it in place, One of you guys will know exactly which model, which year, which model I'm talking about. It was definitely General Motors. But you could not take, once the fuel line was plugged in place, you could not remove it without breaking the plastic. And like I said, this is years ago now, so I don't remember the exact details. But it was like that was one of those clues where it's like time to get out of this business. And the Caddy, the 4100 was known, time to get out of this freaking business. I appreciate that, Heavy Head. I'm no Hunter S. Thompson, bro, but I do appreciate that. The Duke of 5'8", thank you for the super chat. Overrunning alternator decoupler. They put a clutch on an alternator. Oh, what the happened with the Caddy with the water cooled alternator? I remember the first time I came across this. The car had a leak. I'm like, well, okay, it's gonna be the water. It's gonna be the water pump. Car came in, right? This is like where was this? This was on Staten Island still, right? And the car comes in, right? And it's got a leak. And I say, and I glanced at it real quick, and I say, it's either the water pump or the radiator pop a leak, right? And I tell the customer, yeah, I mean, I'll get a look at it. It's either gonna be the water pump or the radiator, you know. But it was the hose that went to the alternator. It wasn't the hose. It was actually the line that the nipple on the alternator was broken, and it was leaking. And I was like, why? Why is this water pump? Why is there antifreeze going through this alternator? Why? Yeah, my alternator is leaking. R&R a soft camshaft on a 70s Cadillac and a front of a light swap. I don't remember Caddies having a soft cam. That was a 305 Chevy thing. That was I mean not to say that there weren't soft cams along the line, but the common one was the 305 Chevy. I back in the 80s, I was surrounded by used car dealers. I had a lot of friends that were in the used car business, and they would go to the auction and they would pick up these Chevys, the 305s with the flat cams, and they'd get them for next to nothing. And I had them lined up, and I had the small block Chevy. I had the G body 305 cam swap down to 4 hours, soup to nuts. From the time I opened the hood and to the time I closed the hood and the car drove away, 4 hours to R&R the cam and lifters on one of those things. Charlie, you say millions of Cadillacs and Pontiacs had soft cams. Bro, I can't recall a Caddy or maybe you're right. On the Pontiac, no. Maybe you're right on the Caddy. It's vague. Maybe it's slightly before my time, right? Maybe that's why I'm not remembering it. But the 305 Chevy was the thing. Out of what year did Chrysler drop to 273 from the LA lineup? 1969 was the last year. Let's see. Curious Okuda. Hey, Tony, what are the big block Mopar parts we should be stocking up on with the supply chain issues? Uh, Geez, offhand, um, I can't think of anything that's specific to the big block Mopar. That's it's like the supply chain thing is taking on everything across the board, right? So it's like, I can't think of anything that's specific for big block Mopar. All I can say is whatever you're building, anything if you plan on keeping it, right? I mean, all your common use parts, all your common wear parts, your water pumps and timing chain sets. I know that like bearing and ring sets are starting to become very scarce. Where they were, especially standard stuff, right? Like standard rod main bearings are becoming, like, for all of these engines, are becoming like very hard to come by. I mean, if you're going to hoard, I would say gasket sets, right? Definitely hoard some gasket sets. But I mean, offhand, it's like there's nothing in particular about the big block Mopar that I can think of off the top of my head that's like, becoming a true scarcity, or they can't be replaced by something else. But an aftermarket part or whatever. But I would, regardless of what you're dealing with, man, regardless of what you're dealing with, at this stage of the game, I would be hoarding like everything you can get your hands on, and that's no exaggeration. Um, Joe K, to what extent is supply chain a true factor to blame? Just seems to be a convenient excuse for anything these days. Joe K, you are right. Okay, you are absolutely right. There's more going on than meets the eye, and I do not want to get into it on this channel. I don't want to get into it in this chat. Okay, but there's much more to it than meets the eye, Joe. And I'm going to tell you right now, the walls are closing in, and they're closing in fast. So do some homework. Do some homework. Jeremy Crocker just killed my first cam an hour after break-in. Stock on new old stock lifters. Just bought hardened foot lifters out of anger. Bro, I know. Jeremy, don't feel bad. Bro, seriously, right? Seriously. I had two cams go bad 2 years ago. It was 3 years ago now. 3 years ago. I had two cams go bad in a row. And the trolls were all over my ass. This guy can't put a cam in an edge. Never mind. I put an uncountable number of cams in an uncountable number of engines and never had a problem, right? And then boom, two in a row on one car, and then a third. Okay. And then lifter problems, hydraulic pump up problems along the same lines. So please. Now it's like I've been vindicated. It's like everybody else is having problems too. I was just the first one to actually just go ahead and talk about it. Most people make a mistake. They try to hide their mistake, right? It's like, oh, I wiped out the cam. Ooh, I better not tell anybody about this. But I'm on cam. I don't do that, right? If something happens, this is what happened, right? I don't know why it happened, or this is why I think it happened, or whatever. I feel that that's my job, right? To report on things. If I'm doing a job and something goes, whether it's good or it's bad, I feel it. I have to report on it. Maybe I'm too honest. Maybe I'm too straightforward. I don't know, right? But I feel that that's my fucking job. But seriously, there's no place to run. There's no place to hide from this bad cam issue, right? Or bad lifter issue. The only thing you can do is what you just did: is stock up on new old stock lifters. Go find old stuff. When we did the GTX in Andy's car, he went out and he found like 40-year-old lifters still in a box, and that's what you got to do. You'll never have a problem if you do that. Hemi Head is saying Happy Mother's Day to Uncle Kathy. Yes, she's inside. She spent Mother's Day gardening. She planted her tomatoes and all kinds of other shit, making a beautiful garden outside. Uh, uh, Gary White, how is Andy doing? Any chance he will come back with the car for updates? The car is done. It's done now. He is talking about. Last time I talked to him was maybe 2 months ago, and he's thinking about doing another Hemi. He's a glutton for punishment. He's thinking about doing another Hemi. I think he's got not a GTX, a Charger, and he wants to do the motor that was in the GTX originally, redo everything and put it in that. That's the last I talked to him. Um, Chris Bubba had to do a water-cooled alternator on a VW. The only way to get the alternator out was to cut the wheel well or remove the engine. Complete. I know. The Volkswagens are the worst. The worst. They make everything under the hood of those cars out of this hard plastic, this plastic that just gets brittle and you can't work with it. That was the Volkswagens were another. There was a Volkswagen. It was a replacement for the minivan. That was and that was like the middle '80s. It was like one of those first. The Volkswagen was one of the first like unworkable cars. It was, and like I said, it was a replacement for the. Somebody else say the name of it, and I'll remember. And was the Vanagon. Vanagon, might have been a Vanagon. I don't remember. But there was one of them where I was like, I won't take any more of these. This is when I had the shop on Richmond Terrace, so the middle '80s. And I worked on like one or two of them. They were popular in the area. It was a Volkswagen dealer, sold a lot of stuff. They were popular in the area. And I worked on one, and I said, "That's it. Nope, ain't gonna touch another one of these." Another one was oh God, what was it now? Was it a Renault? I remember the first Hyundai I worked on. The first Hyundai I worked on was a what happened with that thing? For some reason, I had to. I had to do a timing belt, right, on a Hyundai. It was like the very first Hyundai I worked on, right? So it was like the normal timing belt service. And I never thought anything. You guys are mechanics, you know what I'm talking about, right? You put a wrench on the bolt on the front of the cam, and you rotate to where you've got everything lined up, right? Normal, no big deal, normal. Okay, this was a Hyundai, okay? I put the wrench on the bolt. Mind you, mind you now, right? There was no cam. There was nothing attached to this. It was just the cam. I should have been able to just turn it by hand like this, and the bolt snapped off. It was like it had come from the factory, just like over torqued to the point that it was just ready to snap, and just putting a wrench on it and just going like this, just to rotate the cam, and it fell off. I was like, okay, done. Not touching another one of these things. Please. You guys are still in the reverse rotation motors? Vanagons are still popular. They were junk. They were junk. 283s leak a lot of oil. If you don't put gaskets in them, yeah. I generally find if you put gaskets in the engine that they tend to hold the oil. Curious Yellow Cuda. How about the 90s V6 Caravans with the coolant line that ran through the block to the back of the water pump? I know. How about the Crossfire? Never worked on one. Never worked on one. That just never worked on one. Joe K, I'm in the middle of replacing oil cooler lines on an LS Chevy truck. Have to remove the front diff to get them out. And that is why I got out of the business. Seriously, things became unworkable. If you go back to the, like I said, the late 70s when I became a mechanic, right, and into the 80s, right, everything that came along was repairable. You could do it. It was like things made sense. But then you got to this point where you've got oil cooler lines that you got to take the front diff to get the. No, just no. That's what I mean. Like when I was a kid as a mechanic, we were working on 60s and 70s and early 80s stuff, right? It was like you fixed it. The thing had a problem. You fixed it. You sent it down the road. You woke up in the morning knowing that you had you're gonna be faced with problems, and you're gonna fix these problems, and you were just gonna go about your day, right? But then you got to that where it's like all of these extraneous systems that all became like intertwined and right, they just kept adding stuff and making it more difficult and more ridiculous. Where you got to jack the motor out of the car to get the alternator, and it's like no, it doesn't make any sense. I can't imagine what it's like to be a mechanic today. I cannot imagine. Matt S. Putting a valve cover gasket on my 98 Ram was a job. Basically, I had to lay down on top of the engine trying to reach the rear bolts, and I'm 6'2". I know. I was just talking to Al about that, right? The other day. Because he's doing a Hemi swap in a pickup truck, right? And I'm like, brother man, there is not enough money on this planet. It doesn't exist, right? There is nothing of value on this planet that you could trade me for the labor involved in doing anything on one of those freaking engines in a truck where you got to get under the dashboard. Money does not mean that much to me. Material goods, material things on this earth do not mean enough to me to have me be able to actually work on one of those trucks. It ain't gonna happen. Eve Metal, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Caddy had a tool for setting the cam time and the overhead cam. Cimarron motor honestly didn't work. I set the loads by and hoped for the best. I got lucky. All I ever did with those is split the overlap. It wasn't just the Cimarron. They had a tool for lining up everything back then. When they first went to the dual overhead cam deal. But all I ever did was just split overlap and send it. You know, of course, you can't do that today with the variable valve timing VVT systems. But back then, it was before VVTs. I would just split overlap and send it. Thumper. Worst job I ever had to do was a heater car in the late 80s, Lincoln Mark 8. paid 11 hours. You had to pull the dash almost out and disconnect the AC lines with 4 inches. Have you ever done one on a Dodge Neon? Have you ever done one on a Neon? It's absurd. It's absurd. Yes, okay, the dash has got to come out. Fine, right? But the harness, the main harness of the car has to be redone from under the hood. Everything that harness attaches to under the hood has to be undone to pull it back far enough to get it placed. I don't want to talk about it. Jody High Roller, Uncle Tommy, ever done work on old Japanese cars like Datsuns or old Toyotas, especially carbureted motors? Thoughts on them, and they were well designed. I loved working on those. The Toyotas were the best. The Toyotas, early Toyotas, like 1970s Toyotas, were the easiest, simplest, most common sense cars ever. Okay, I mean, I would put them right up there with like 1960s economy American cars. Everything was either 10 or 12 millimeter. They were a joy to work on, the Toyotas. The Nissans not as much, but they were still they were Datsuns. I had a couple of 240Z cars back in the day, right? So I was very familiar with them. But yeah, as good as they were, as easy as they were to work on when they first come over, is as bad as they got in later years. But yeah, man, those 70s Toyotas, like the original Japanese invasion of cars, were an absolute joy to work on. Well, what's your favorite year for the Plymouth Valiants? The 68s, the 67s or 69s. Well, I mean, really, they're the same. They're really the same car from 67 through 73. 73 is the last year for an actual Valiant because it's on a 108-inch wheelbase. 74, it's actually a Dodge Dart with Valiant badging. But that generation, all of the cars that have that back window that's straight at the top and it curves back like that, I love that. I love those. So that would be 67 through 73. Screaming Seaman, that's why you love the 90s Hondas. Yes, the 90s Hondas were very easy to work on. Dean Stevenson, 45 minutes to do a head gasket on an 1881 Toyota 2T Hemi. Yep. I know. 1996, the 3SGE, 32 hours, right? Could you imagine? Oh, God. Oliver saying if I was a car, I'd be a 77 Celica GT. They were nice cars. Those were slick, right? Those were slick little cars. Creekside Garage, thank you for the super chat. Cleveland steadily loses oil pressure as it idles. No knock or noise. Declines with acceleration. Gauge is good. What do you think? No knocks or noise. Declines with acceleration. You mean that with acceleration the gauge goes down? If under acceleration, if under load, you can see the gauge take a dip, right, and just stay there while it's under load, that's excessive main bearing wear. Because what's happening is if you've got excessive wear in the mains, under load, the crank is being pushed down into the saddles, and it's increasing the gap between the oil passage and the crankshaft journal itself. So actually, I've got a 270. The 273 in my GT is like that. The mains are so worn on it that when you get on it, if you watch the oil pressure gauge, it'll be like, let's say 40 pounds. And when you get on it, it'll drop to like 36 pounds, 38 pounds. And then when you let your foot off the gas, it comes right back up to 40. That's just because the mains are so worn that when it's under load, it's pushing the crank down into the saddles and away from the oil hole. It makes that gap bigger and it drops the oil pressure. But I'll tell you what, you'd be surprised. You get an engine to run for 100,000 miles just like that. Don't stress it if it's not making any noises. Talk Rush, thank you for the super chat. Yo, Tony, I need some A-body 4-speed pedals, and I have some B-body ones for trade. If you know anyone, shoot them my way. I don't have any, but if anybody wants to swap some A-body manual trans pedals for B-body ones, Talk Garage, you got to be specific. You need either 63 through 66 or 67 through 76. You get 2 generations of A-bodies. The pedal sets are going to be different. I've driven Danny Boyd. I've driven an 83 and 84 Super. Nice driving cars with just sloppy as shit. Yeah, Toyota shifters back in the day were like just, you had to intuitively know where the gears were because there was no detents or anything like that. You just had to know first gear, second gear. I remember driving those cars. Okay, 67 up. So Tall Garage needs a set of 67 up A-body pedals, and he's willing to swap a set of B-body pedals for it. Let's see. Abel D, what is the most silly special tool you'd have to buy for a repair? Oh God, I got to think on that. It's been so long, right? I've been out of regular cars now, regular repair since I'm going to say like 2008, right? So it's been a while. I'd have to think about that. Jody High Roller, Uncle Tony, 440 or 454 or 460. What is the best and what are some cool things about each of those motors that as fans, please don't ever call yourself a fan. You're a viewer, okay? I don't like fans. What as viewers might not know of. Okay. My personal favorite is the 440. The unique thing about the 440 Wall Big Block Chrysler is that it's literally a scaled up small block Chevy, right? And they're simple to work on. They're nearly bulletproof. Okay. The best of the bunch is the 454 Chevy. You cannot argue with the rat motor. Lots of Mopar guys will be like, oh, the Hemi, oh, this. No, okay. Normally aspirated. The only place on earth where the Hemi really shines, okay, is blown on when you got a supercharged high volume situation. Okay. The 454, the big block Chevy, is the overall inch pound for pound overall the best choice for the internal combustion engine, right? Chevy got it right. The 460, they're obscure. They're really good ports. The heads are good. The bottom ends are okay. I can't think of anything like really special about them. The 460 is a better choice than the 440. Like the 440 is my favorite, is the lesser of those three engines. So if I had to rate them, I would say the 454 first, the 464 second, and the 440 Mopar third. Let's see. Mike Winton, thank you for the super chat. What do you think makes some modern engines great? What can classic engine builders learn from modern tech? Modern tech is basically the the modern the ring packages, the porting, the finish on ports, all of those things are everything that's in modern engines today, everything that makes modern engines great today, is basically tried and true race technology from the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. It just took a while for that technology to find its way into like the regular everyday. So it's like you take a typical production four-cylinder motor, right? You just pop the hood on whatever, and what you're going to find there is an IndyCar motor from 1968, right? That's really what it comes down to. All of the modern engines are based. All of the advances in technology on modern engines are all based on old race motors. It's and some of them, like the LS, are a beautiful combination of the two. It's the old architecture and the new technology. You put them together, and you have an unbeatable combination. Ah, it's my brother James. Yes, happy Mother's Day, Uncle Brother. Um, yeah, the new machining of new engines is so precise, but you see that was race prep, right? So if you go back to the day, you go back to when 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, right? That was race prep. That was like, if you build pro stock motor or a high end modified eliminator, competition eliminator motor, that level of machining is what eventually ended up in production. Um, Jason Whaley, what was the deal? I remember that, man. The Hondas were the worst. What was the deal with all the extra vacuum lines on 70s and 80s Japanese cars? Was this really needed? Uh, Thought this was complicated. Nothing compared to today, though. I, okay, so the Honda specifically, right, used a vacuum computer that's exactly what it was. It was a vacuum version, a vacuum operated computer. And they use that to optimize ignition timing, right? So it would take vacuum signals from all of these coolant temp and air temp and this that like all of those vacuum lines that ran all over. They were crazy. It was crazy, right? All those vacuum lines ran into a box that was mounted on the fender wall, and the purpose of them. If you remember, those things had a vacuum advanced distributor had a nipple on each side. And the purpose of that whole system, there's 100 vacuum lines on that thing. The purpose of that was to say how much and which side of that vacuum diaphragm is going to get it, and how much is it going to get. So it was an electronic, it was a vacuum operated computer system. And then obviously that all got replaced once processors, because that was from the day, let's say, of the Chrysler Leanbird, right, which was like the earliest version of the regular production automotive computer, and it sucked. So while those vacuum systems, those vacuum computers were difficult to work with, it was a mind bending amount of, right, difficult to work with. It was still better than the electronics that were available in the day. Um, Yeah, yeah, no, we haven't. We haven't, and we won't. We're not going to. You two would be wearing a tuxedo to the No Name Nationals. No, no. Random Guy 20, can you explain the true definition of an RV camshaft? I read a lot of mixed ideas and don't have a definitive answer. There is no definitive answer. That's why you don't have a definitive answer. An RV camshaft is one that's ground for torque. Okay, different engines are going to are going to want a different profile. Like there's no specific thing that says RV cam is this. An RV cam is a camshaft that's ground with the idea of producing low end torque, low end and mid range torque. So generally speaking, they'll have super wide LSAs. They won't have a lot of lift. They'll have moderate duration. But it's a torque cam. It's a cam that's ground specifically for mid range torque, low and mid range torque. What do you mean we got to drop a reverse piston shape ball in a 60? Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. We're good. Tony, have you ever dealt with a runaway diesel? I have not. I have not. I almost had to deal with a runaway fuel car, right? This was about 10 years ago, right? Maybe a little bit longer. Maybe it was like 12 years ago. So I get this gig tuning a front engine top fuel car, a nostalgia top fuel car. Okay, so it was the backyard guys. They were from North Carolina, and they were going to run an event up here in Kentucky, right? So I get this deal through my friend Dick Gaylord. Dick died a couple of years ago. Dick was a very difficult person to call your friend. He burned a lot of bridges. He had a lot of enemies. Probably still does, right? Dick was a really unique character, but I loved him. Okay, so he sets me up with this deal to set this car up, right? So I meet the car at the track, and I spent the day getting acquainted with it and everything else. And I put my basic tune-up in it, my starting point tune-up with the car. And Dick disagreed with me on a couple of things, right, on how things should be set. And I was like, Dick, it's my job to set this up, and it's your job to like work around, right? I says, you do work around. You tell everybody what to do with this car because it was new crew. They don't have to be trained, right? Says you tell everybody what to do around the car and leave this part of it to me. Talking about the fuel system on it, right? All right, sure, okay, no problem. So he spends the rest of the day and he stays away from me. Now he's mad at me. Okay, Dick is freaking mad at me. So at any rate, this track was up 100 miles from my house, Bowling Green. It's only 100 miles from my house. So we're supposed to run Saturday, and this is all happened on Friday afternoon. Okay, so I says, you know what? I'm going to go home. I don't like staying in hotels. I says, I'm going to go home. I'm going to sleep, and I'll come back in the morning. So in the morning, I wake up, right? My phone's ringing, okay? And it's Dick, right? And the first words out of his mouth was, nobody was hurt. I was like, what? He says, nobody got hurt. Everything's okay. I said, what do you mean nobody got hurt? We're not supposed to run the car until like 2 o'clock this afternoon. What do you mean nobody was hurt? I said, well, we had a little problem. I figured, let me give you a call, let you know what happened, because somebody else is going to call you, and it's going to make a big deal over all this stuff, and it wasn't a big deal. So anyway, make a long story short, Dick decides he wants to light the car before I get to the track. I don't know why he wanted to do this, okay? But he wanted to light the car. And he makes a couple of adjustments, not knowing what I had done. You follow me? So in other words, like I put my own thing in the car. And then he put his interpretation of adjustments in the car. And he ended up with a runaway nitro car. And this thing ran. I don't know if anybody was at this event. This was a Bowling Green. I think it was a Hot Rod Reunion, or it was the Good Guys race. 2008, 2009, someplace in that range. But this thing, it ran and it ran and ran. They couldn't shut the fucking car off. And somebody eventually ran over one of the safety guys, ran over with a fire extinguisher and stuffed it down the injector. So when I get there, right, the car is scattered, the motor is scattered everywhere because when you shut a runaway nitro car off with a fire extinguisher, that stuff gets inside everything. So the whole motor had to get torn down. The valves had to come out of the heads. It was just a total mess. So that's my runaway nitro, my runaway engine story. Nobody got hurt, Tony. Everything's okay. Nobody got hurt. Van Little, why did the old diesel fail? I don't know. Maybe somebody's got a good answer for that. I don't know. If I had to take it, because I never really thought about it. Where's that bike on your avatar? Okay. If I had to think about it, I would say most likely that the geometry of the engine, the architecture of the engine, was probably much more suited to gasoline use, meaning that bore-stroke relationships might have been more optimized for gasoline than they would have been for for diesel. I don't know, but I'm sure somebody would get in there and yeah, Kurt, I'm aware the Olds diesel was oh, well, it's good. The Olds diesel failed because they couldn't flow enough air and oil channels weren't good. All right. Arthur Rose, all big block deep skirted Mopar superior, stronger bottom than Ford and Chevy, period. Where do you get that from? The deep skirt, where exactly does that support the crank? Because it doesn't. The deep skirt does not support the crank. Yes, there are gussets that run from the sidewalls to the outer parts of the main saddle, but that never stopped the damn things from cracking. Okay, the crank, if anything, it's an inferior design because of the way it's designed. You can't add a second set of bolts, so you can't support the cap. You can't spread the load of the cap. So here's your two bolts, okay? So and you've got this much width between the at the oil pan rail, right? With a 4-bolt main, like you can have with a Ford or a Chevy, right? And I don't mean a Y block. I mean a later, like a 460 solid motor. You can use a 4-bolt main, which spreads the load of the main cap further across the saddles of the block. On a big block Mopar, you've got gussets there, but that does very little to support the actual cap itself. Think about that, right? So no, it's not a superior design. It's actually, it has more of a liability in a high horsepower application than the Chevy would. Frank, when Olds pulled out their diesel, they built a pretty effective hand grenade. Pulling the hood release was like pulling the pin. Hemihead, Tony, do you work often with dynamometers and can one obtain easy? No, I have never, wait, before I say never. I don't ever recall working on a dyno. Now, I've had friends who ran dynos and who had motors on dynos, and I would compare notes with them and learn from what they were doing. But I myself have never had an engine on a dyno. Fastang 85. I think splayed mains are stronger than regular 4-bolts. Yes, they are. Here's a perfect example. Here's a perfect example, right? So early Chryslers, right? The 331, 354, 392s, right? They have a split. They don't have a deep skirt, okay. And the thing with those engines, they started making girdles for them, but eventually they went. Almost all of the fuel motors went with a splayed 4-bolt main, okay. And there were never any bottom end problems with those engines. They stayed together. The 26 had more problems, right? The late Hemi had more bottom end problems than the early Hemi did, and the difference there is displayed 4-bolt main, right, versus the cross bolted main. Early Chryslers, 392 style Chryslers, right, never pulled. They didn't crack in the upper saddle. It'll crack next to the oil hole like the 426 or the 440 does. The early Chrysler didn't have that problem. Never had that problem, right? Well, what's the main difference? The main difference is the early Chrysler was more like a Chevy, and they used a splayed 4-bolt main, versus the 426, which only had those cross bolts. And the cross bolts don't do anything to support the saddle in the block, that area between the top of the saddle and the bottom of the cam journal, which is where it'll crack. It cracks over the boss and it runs up the cylinder wall. So yes, absolutely, splayed 4-bolt is a better system than regular 4-bolt. Holy shit! It's almost 2 o'clock or 2 hours. This was actually this went. I'll hang out for a while. Matt S, was the 4-bolt mains on a 346 barrel really necessary? Probably not. Thumper is looking. You're looking for an old diesel for your ethanol project. I want the compression. Okay. Richard Clare, thank you for the super chat. You're saying the old diesel failed because it was a gas engine converted to diesel, and the lower end was not strong enough. It kept blowing the crank out the bottom. Mike Smithshift, thank you for the super chat. Howdy, everyone. Hope you all had a good Mother's Day and have a good week ahead. And yeah, if any moms are in the background here, right? You know what? You get your old man watching me, and you're in the background. Happy Mother's Day. Olive, are you a mom, Olive? Mike Whitman, thank you again for the super chat, Mike. Why was the aluminum Slant 6 not more popular? Was it before its time, or was it something else? It didn't really serve a purpose. From a performance standpoint, it's an inferior motor. From a performance standpoint, it's an inferior motor. It required a special head gasket. It had a steel liner. It was a very thin steel liner and had an open deck. So the bottom end was okay. The bottom end was strong enough. Nobody had any problems or complaints about the bottom end of those engines, but they had head gasket sealing issues. So raising compression, running at a high RPM, pushing those motors would lead to head gasket problems. So they never caught on there. And at the time, the weight difference didn't mean anything in a production car. You got to go back to 1961, 1962, and saving 64 pounds off the nose of your Valiant just wasn't an important thing to people. So that's why it never went anywhere. Big Mike Hoopty Bun, thank you for the super chat. Just want to say hey to our cult leader, UTG, and faithful followers. Thank you. And happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And thank you for the super chat, Mike. This was a fun night. This went really fast. I don't know why. Some nights go faster than others. Southern Oklahoma Mopars. Hey. Oh, hey. Okay. Does anybody know Mopar Man 1978? Is he on here? Mopar Man 1978? Dakota, he normally is. Make sure you say happy birthday, happy Mother's Day to your mom for me, Dakota. Okay, he was here earlier. I saw a short. He did a short. He's making a windage tray for a Slant 6. Tell him he better put some serious drainage in there, because that just the way he's got that thing set up, it's gonna work the exact opposite of a windage tray. It's gonna trap the oil up in the crankcase. That thing needs some serious drainage in the direction of rotation, so the oil gets slung into louvers or some sort of perforation. So once the oil hits it, it goes through. The way he's got that, if that's how he actually intends on running this thing, just make him stop. Just make him stop. Zero. Cut some holes. Zero. Tell them to study. Tell them to study windage trays. Windage trays all have certain things in common with each other. Tell them to look at some windage trays. I mean, I respect what he's doing. I respect that he's trying to build a windage tray. But if that's the setup that he's going to put on there, he's actually going to, if he runs that motor for any amount of time, any type of RPM, he's going to kill the motor. He's going to starve that bitch. In addition to putting all of the oil up in the crankcase. Jay Russell Finch, Tony, are you secretly worried about Andy's rig? No, I'm. And Andy knows I love him, and I have all the respect in the world for him. I don't think he's going to get it dialed in. I don't think he's going to have it sorted. So, and that's why I pulled him. That's why the bet that I made with him was one and done off the trailer. Okay, so. There's no doubt about it. He's got 300 horsepower on me. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No question. He's got 250, 300 horse on me. But he's not going to be able to get that thing sorted and dialed enough to where it'll be consistent enough that he's going to be able to roll it off a trailer, right? With no test and tune on a one and done race. No. Actually, the more power he makes, the less I worry about it. You forget. I'm an old school street racer. You know, old school street racer. we have our ways. We have our we have our ways of calculating and figuring things. Okay, so the more power he makes with this thing, the more confident I am. I'm going to get to the strike first, and he knows that. He knows that. We talk about it. Uh, Zachary Picorni, Tony, why do so many seem to shit on you online, specifically Mopar forums? You know, I don't know. I don't know. When I was Mopar magazine guy, right? So now you got to remember something, okay? I did Mopar magazines. Just seriously, okay? There's no bullshit now. And you guys, anybody who knows me, there's several people in the chat here to know me, right? I put the very first issue of High Performance Mopar, the very first newsstand, regular newsstand Mopar publication, I put out there in 1986. And then 2 years later, I started Mopar Action magazine. And for a short period of time, for a couple of months, I actually had content in both. I was doing competing magazines against myself. Okay, so all of these Mopar people who were talking shit about me, I was like the Mopar god in the 1980s, 1990s, right? I mean, I could do no wrong. I was the Mopar god. Now I do YouTube, and it's like, he's just a piece of shit. He don't know anything. Please, why? I don't know. I don't know, but that's what it is. It is what it is. Kurt Wilson, maybe it's jealousy. Maybe, I don't know. Listen, I don't know. I don't know how people's heads work. I honestly don't. I don't know. I don't know what triggers people. What gets in their mind. I don't know. I don't know. But like I said, I there wouldn't. Please. John Wilburn is saying the public opinion favored Andy to win about 90-10 in January. No, it's nearly even. All I can say to Andy is, hey man, bring that thing to the dyno and go find another 50 horsepower. Let's do this. Howard Chun, John Tanktop, Tony's knowledge of putting a car together can't be disputed. Well, they dispute it all the time. Mopar Den. I bought every issue of Mopar Action from issue 1. I lived every issue. Well, then there you go. See, Mopar Den knows my history. He has them all saved in his attic. So yeah, I was like the Mopar hero to like everybody when I was doing magazines. Now I'm like, he's like, that guy doesn't know nothing. He doesn't know shit. He's a hack. Right? Bro, I tell you what, anybody who's in their 30s or their 40s that's a Mopar person, right, grew up reading my stuff, only they don't realize they were reading my stuff. Ian Smith, $5. Thank you for the super chat, Ian. With electrification on the way, do you have any interest in electric hot rodding? I do and I don't. Like, I have no interest, and it's like everything. I tell people all the time, right? I would love to do something with an import. I would love to do something turbocharged. There's a lot of things I'd love to do, but I am not going to go out and buy those things myself. I have my own cars, I have my own fleet, and I do what I do on them. And it's the same thing with electric, right? I would love, no problem. I would, if somebody's going to bring me an electric, excuse me, an idea for an electric deal and supply the car, and I'm going to work with them. Yes, I would be all over it. I think it would be a very neat thing to do. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But would I actually do it myself? Go buy or build an electric car? No, I wouldn't. But honestly, it's because I'm at the end of the game. Like, I don't really, I don't want to add any more burden to myself. At this stage, any vehicle I own, any project I take on is just adding a freaking burden. And I don't want any more burdens. I just, so I'm done with that. But I would love to work with somebody else. I would love to work with somebody else on that. Yes. Charles Manson. There's only so much you can do in an electric motor, less physical tinkering and more software equals not as much fun for me. You're leaving the rest of it out of the equation. How about making the car work? Right? So yes, I agree. There's less you can do in the engine. I get that, right? But what about actually making the car work? You know, there's a lot more to making a car do a thing, right? There's a lot more to making it perform than just what parts are inside the engine. You know, how about ways to supercharge the current going to the motor, right? Getting the thing to hook, getting it to transfer weight correctly. There's a whole science to that like, and that's what I find fascinating about it, is because it will behave differently. You know, it's going to take a different mindset, a different approach, right? So yeah, I agree with you. There's only so much you can do with the electric motor, but as far as the car as a whole, no, there's every bit that you can do with an internal combustion engine, you can do with an electric motor. Jim Jameson, longer extension cord. E.J. Potter built an electric car, an electric drag car back around like 1971, I think it was, or thereabouts. Somebody who knows this better than I do would spit it out. 1970, 71 is the time I think he did it. And he had a quarter-mile long extension cord, right? The thing was, it was run off of a generator, some kind of industrial generator. And he had a reel, right? A reel with a quarter-mile long extension cord, and he'd run this thing out on that. So yeah, it's been done. It's been done. E.J. Potter, the Michigan Madman. Whoops. What happened here? Hey, Cat. Oh, okay, I'm back. Never mind, I got it. Good night, Wild Rose. Mike Whitman had a super chat. Hang on, let me go back up there. Did I miss you, Mike?
You okay?
Yeah. I accidentally. Don't worry about it. We're good.
Okay.
I'm sorry I missed your super chat, Mike, but thank you for it. What in the design of the Hellcat makes it so sought after or unique? I appreciate your wealth of knowledge. There's nothing in particular in the design of the Hellcat. It's a supercharged Hemi. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, that's about the brass ring that, you know, consider the brass ring of like internal combustion engines. You know, a hemispherical combustion chambered engine, or even, well, it's not really hemispherical. It's a Hemi name only, but it is an incredibly efficient cylinder head with a supercharger. That's it. That's all the magic you need. And you could tune it to all of these different levels. You know, the Helephant and all this other stuff. So it's nothing particular in the design of the Hellcat specifically. It's just that general combination. It's a supercharged Hemi. The Taillight Spiders Guide. You remember that? That was in Cars Illustrated magazine. I did that. Franco, I know it's not a Hemi, but tell that to the world. Tell that to everybody who reads the nameplate on the side that says Hemi. I know it's not a Hemi. You know it's not a Hemi. But then again, Franco, think about it. The 426 isn't truly a Hemi either. Moparman 1978. Moparman, I saw this short video you did on a windage tray for your oh God. Moparman, I'm trying to think how I want to be able to talk to you about what you're doing with your windage tray, but I can't like give you information here like this. If John Wilburn or somebody else that has my number can get you my number, text me. Seg Slim Jims. When can we see more on the 67 Charger? As soon as I got this other stuff out of my way. Why is the 426 not truly a Hemi? Honestly, don't know. Curious. It just it has to do with the radius of the combustion chamber. It's not a true hemisphere where the early Hemi, the early Chrysler 331, 354, 392 is. In other words, the radius, you follow the radius of the combustion chamber, you actually make a complete circle. Joe Brennan, I really love your videos with Kiwi. That dude seems pretty rad. I love Kiwi. He's a great guy to work with. He's a great guy to do anything with. He's so talented. He is so talented. Shitty mechanic. I got him covered. No, but he seriously like his imagination and his execution of things. He's just it was like what he was doing at Fastback Cougar, and he showed me what he's going to do, and I'm like, what are you out of your mind? Right? What did you smoke this morning? And you come back 2 weeks later, and it fits, and it's all fitted, molded perfectly, and it's like the guy's he's just brilliant. Yes, Ari, send him my number and tell him to, and Moparman text me. I spent a lot of time studying the exact area that you're in right now. Jeremy Crocker, when did you stop driving modern cars? I'm 30 and gave up new cars, made 35-year-old projects. I drive what to me is a modern car. Right now, I've got a 98 XJ that's been my daily for about 8 months now, 9 months now. And I just love that truck. I love it. But that's as new as I get. That's it. That's as far as we go. When did I stop driving modern cars? It's been at least 20 years. It's been at least 20 years. When I stopped driving modern cars, that XJ was still new. The last modern thing I had, the last modern vehicles I had was when I first moved to Tennessee. I bought two Rangers. I had a V6 5-speed, and I had a four-cylinder extended cab 5-speed. I had two. They were both black, and it was when I first moved here. Because I got good deals on them, and I was like, okay, I like these. I like these trucks. So I had those two Rangers, and I had them for about 2 years or so. And that was the last. And they were like mid-90s, middle 90 trucks. They were still relatively late model. But I bought them because I just didn't have the time or the inclination to screw around with anything. I was like, okay, here's turnkey stuff. Because I needed to learn my new home. I needed to learn the lay of the land. And, so I said, well, don't have time to screw around with anything else. And I bought those two Rangers. The Rangers were really good, French Onion. Really good. You see, when you moved to Etienne, did you have to hire a car hauler to bring your cars down here? I had no cars. I was 100% motorcycle. In the last couple of years I was in New York, I had a car for Kathy, right? She had a car to drive around. She had the kids and everything. I only rode motorcycles year round, right? And when I came down here, when I got ready to leave New York, when I decided I'm out of here, I had 28 motorcycles. And I boiled that down to 7. I came down here with 7. I figured, okay, because I had everything. I had a little bit of everything. I'm a freak like that, right? I just love all motorcycles. I had dirt bikes. I had a Ducati. I had a TL 1000. I had a 900RR. I had a couple of BSAs. I had 269 A65s. I had, but anyway, I had a thing for Ironhead Sportsters. I still do. I love Ironheads. So I sold off everything I had. I had a Suzuki Katana that had what did it have? Like 800 miles on it, right? Brand new bike. And I got rid of everything. And I came down here with just the 7 Ironhead Harleys and 1 2-stroke Yamaha. I came down here with an R5 Yamaha, and that was it. So I bought a van. I bought a van, loaded stuff up on a trailer, and just took everything down like that, the motorcycles. And once I came down here, I started with cars again with those Ranger trucks. Screaming Seaman, I love cafe races, just a pain to ride after all. Yeah, well, that's why you have to have more than one bike. Two Hacks has a Honda CL175 cafe racer. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. He nailed this thing. Yogurt 77, what's going on? All right, guys, I'm gonna pull a plug. I got to jump in the shower, and I got to get up early. I got to shoot video first thing in the morning. So I'm gonna call it a night. We're gonna pull the plug. So as usual, everybody contributed with super chat. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. It all helps. Every little bit helps, keeps the wheels turning. Everybody contributed, just yourselves, your conversation, your presence. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of our ever-growing YouTube automotive community. Our mods, Ari, John, Zero, Fubar, thank you. Eternally thank you. I see you guys doing a lot of lives. I have to try to get in there at some point. I'm occupied, man. I'm just occupied. My head is occupied. So just real quick, right? Dallas Brown, Mr. Ryder's Neighborhood. If you haven't gone over there and subbed to him, right, get that done. Mopar Al, he needs a sub, right? The Junkyard Jet Kids, Daddy's Money's Garage. Go over there, sub to those guys. There's so much good, and of course, all of our no-name 500 contenders. Not they're John Wilburn and Dallas. They're no-name 500 contenders. All of them, right? Give their channels a look. Give them a sub, right? This is, all good. All good. Everything's good. And that's it. I think I covered it all, right? I think I covered it all. We'll be back live on Wednesday night with our usual show with Dallas. And that's it. I'm going to pull the plug. So good night, everybody, and thank you.